Yeah, let the big dog huddle again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Philly Pulse, your city sports beat. I'm your host, Joe Staszak, my man right there. Sean Lochner. Sean, how are you? Last time we met, the Eagles had a defense, and now where'd everybody go? What are we looking at? What are we looking at?
Joe, I
We
don't
had
know
the
where
number
to
one
begin.
defense. What happened?
I, I, I mean, you know,
I know we're gonna have less going on
yeah,
from the
yeah,
Inquirer to
it's just
kind of hash things out, but I was okay. Look, you win, guys are gonna get paid. That's fine. The core's still in place. I didn't think CJ GJ was necessary to be traded for $3.7 million cap savings, and maybe down the road, I know his cost is going to escalate, but did you have to get rid of him? He led the team in interceptions, third in the league. He led it 2 years ago. He's a playmaker.
well,
I know
I,
he's a pain in the ass, but he's a
he
playmaker.
is, and it sounded like there was some rumblings that he was a pain in the ass all
Well,
year.
we know that. He is a pain in the ass.
Right.
They didn't know that when they signed him again.
No, hey, I get it. I mean, and it was an amazing deal. I mean, it was great. It was awesome. I mean, and towards look, he was horrible at the beginning of the year.
He did. He had some problems with coverage. The Packers game, he couldn't
Yeah,
get his footing and whatnot, but he turned it on. He played ball.
absolutely. Yeah, he turned it on.
He
He
played
stole a
ball.
couple interceptions from my boy.
He did from Quinyon Mitchell. He kept, he's a
I don't
ball.
know. I wonder if there's a yeah. I think it was more or less like 3.5 down the road. This dude can be an asshole sometimes.
And
Let's do it.
how does that
I,
affect your
I,
football
I
team?
don't know. I think it's funny. It's now that we have our second Super Bowl and this one, like we just like literally destroyed the team, and everybody was like, "All right, yeah, let's run it back, run it back." And Howie in the beginning, afterwards, oh,
He
you want
tried
me
to,
to
no,
stop?
I was going to say he ran it back last time and didn't work.
Right, but also during the combine mentioned
He
like,
did.
"Hey, it's going to be a little different this
He
year," and I
warned
just think that,
everybody. He warned everybody. But I'm
yeah.
not sure if he almost overcompensated. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean I'm shocked. I'm shocked by some of the moves. I mean just I mean who they've lost. I mean some of them don't surprise me.
We're
I
going to
find
bring
it
Les
very
Bowen in. Les Bowen's been waiting from the Philadelphia
yeah, let's put
Inquirer
them in.
Daily News. He's been on our show a couple times before.
Yeah.
Award-winning writer. Here he comes. And we'll go back with Les days of the Philadelphia Flyers. There he is. That's a still shot. Here he comes. Lester!
Hey Joe,
Hey
how
Les.
Hey, welcome to the show, bud.
hey, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing, my
Oh,
friend? I appreciate you joining us. We were just wondering where the defense went. We had a number one defense, and we were looking around like, who, what?
the new
Yeah,
process?
it's I think they're going to be okay. They've signed some fellows these last few days. They aren't high profile signings, but veteran depth. Jackson. I was glad to see that because without him, they were going to have an incredibly young cornerback room
Really
this
young.
year. I doubt he beats out Keely Ringo as a starter. He might, but I think Keely Ringo is probably good enough to start ahead of him. But it's good to have a veteran in the mix somehow. And there's a lot of the free agent stuff they've done is stuff like that. Not star players because they don't need star players. And they've lost a few people. I would have tried to keep probably Isaiah Rogers maybe, but
I was
you know
surprised
they
at that.
I kind of knew Williams was gone and Sweat. It's a shame. It's really weird how anymore in sports, I mean, you barely finish the parade and guys are on other teams.
It's
Right?
crazy. It
And I
seems
think
so
Sweat
fast.
actually said something like that at his press conference in Arizona was like, I haven't really gotten a chance to enjoy the Super Bowl.
That's what I mean. Now he's in Arizona. He's back with Jonathan Gannon. I get all that,
Yeah.
but he's now on not quite the team he was here. I mean, I know guys, sometimes you get one shot at a payday, go get it.
Yeah.
But you sacrifice what the culture you were in. You know, they had to feel
Yeah.
good, you
Yeah.
know, and then the way they ended the season with the 55 on Washington. They played the two best games of the year in their last
Yeah.
two games, and that's what everyone remembers. And good for them because I mean, Josh Sweat had 8 sacks this year. Didn't set the world on fire. He had two and a
Right.
half in the Super Bowl. People remember that. Milt Williams had
Game of his life in the Super Bowl,
Williams
really.
had
Yeah.
five game of his life, and that's what
Yep.
people remember. And Williams had 5 sacks this year. It's not like these guys are Miles Garrett or Trey
Right.
Hendrickson. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
I do kind of think Williams is still on the way up. I might be
sure,
wrong
oh
about
sure,
that. Josh,
Yeah.
I don't really think he is anymore. I mean, he's been around quite a while now. I loved Sweat in the early when he was first drafted. It was such a great story. You know, he was the best high school player at any position in Eastern Virginia, in the country. And he had a horrible knee injury. It was like the when he first got to the hospital, they were talking about amputating his leg and stuff. And you know, he rebuilt his career. He was a good player in college, but it took years for him to really get
take years.
back. And he worked hard at it. And he really, he had some good. The year they went to the Super Bowl and lost, he was very, very good. But this past year you saw him, end up past the quarterback a lot of times. He would take a real outside route and end up behind the quarterback,
Over
and you can't
pursue,
do
yeah.
much from back there most of the time.
Josh
So
Sweat. I'm sorry, I
yeah,
didn't interrupt. So
no,
Josh
go
Sweat
ahead. I'm just
gone.
rambling on and on. Go ahead.
No, you're not at all. Milt Williams gone. Darius Slay, okay. Waiting for him to drop. He had a very good year, and I was a little surprised.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to go by the way of James Bradbury, which now he has because Bradbury was gone. Slay is gone now with the Steelers. You mentioned Isaiah Rodgers. I was a little surprised at that. Warren Burks, I thought, did a great job when the Kobe
yeah,
Dean went out with an injury. I mean, he's getting up there in age. Listen, he set the tone. The first play of the playoffs, he caused a fumble on the
right,
opening kickoff. Like he did some. They all had a piece. Kenneth
right.
Gainwell, I thought was a great teammate, and when he came
Yeah,
in, I know he didn't get a lot of time, but when he came in, he delivered. He would give you some excitement, explosion. So and I know I'm not alone here with having a problem with this, but 3.7 million in cap space, I think it was, or something like that, to trade CJ Gardner Johnson. He was a playmaker. He was
yeah,
third
yeah,
in the league in sacks, first on your team. 2 years ago, despite missing 5 games with a lacerated kidney, first in the league in interceptions, I
yeah.
should say, with 6. Probably, him and Quinion Mitchell, if they could communicate a little better, one of them would have had a couple more.
Right.
I know he's a pain in the ass, but he kind of gave a little swagger to the defense. And
Yeah, you sure did. Yeah, I was surprised that
was
they
that
traded
okay? So
him.
you were too. Was that necessary? Like, what do you
Well,
think was behind that? Because they got a guard who is on the
right.
cusp of being called a bust. Kenyon Green, I
Yeah.
mean, first round
Well,
pick.
maybe Stoutland has some idea about this guy. And
That's
if
the
he
thing, because
does,
you saw
more power. But
Becton.
Stoutland, as great as Stoutland is, he's had these ideas before, and he can't go out and play for the guy. I
Right.
mean, Chance Womack was a Stoutland guy,
Mhm.
and he was still Chance Womack here. He same profile, high first round pick, never
I
really
forgot
did
about
much
him.
of anything. Uh, so I don't know, but with CJ, I got to think. I mean, they're not crazy, right? Something's either he was really more of a problem than we know, or they really think one of their other safeties is that he's not the kind of guy who would react well if they actually had somebody pushing him and he maybe wasn't a starter all the time or something. I don't know, but it was a strange move. It didn't save them a lot of money. Um, it's interesting though. CJ moves about every year some way.
It's like
Yeah.
five teams I think he's been with now.
Yeah,
Four or
So
five
just
teams.
coincidence, you would say, with the Twitter interaction that he or X interaction that he
I
had with
don't
the whole
know.
Darius Slay thing, Les?
Well, it can't be that they were really upset about Slay because they let Slay leave,
Right.
So I don't, but just the overall vibe of the guy, maybe was more than they wanted to put up with.
What did they not
I
know? They
should,
don't remember last time he left. He said "bleep you" to the Eagles fans,
yeah,
and like that.
yeah.
Sure.
I mean, did we forget about that?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
think
know. I'd love to talk to Big Dom off the record about this guy and what, because guys that aren't great fits culturally, they don't have a lot of patience with that anymore. In the Andy Reid days, they did, but anymore, it doesn't take much to make them say, we don't need this.
Big
So I don't
Dom
know.
is the ruler of the Eagles.
Yeah. Well, he knows where the bodies are
I
buried,
was going to
perhaps.
say, what do you know? I've met Big Dom, and he was with the Andy in Minnesota. He's been there a while. What do you
Yeah,
know about Big Dom? Now, I know he's really gotten a lot of play. Like everyone, how often do you know the security guards,
right.
the security of the football team? But when he got into it with the San Francisco,
Yeah.
I was at that game. I forget his name. Anyway,
Wasn't it Dre Greenwall or
thank
Greenlaw,
you,
somebody like
Greenlaw.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, his star went, berserk.
Yeah.
And now there's articles, and I'm looking to do a piece on him. I mean, and everyone loves him to death.
Yeah.
What do we know about Big Dom?
Well, I don't know a ton about him that hasn't been already publicized. I know that they depend on him a lot in the draft process. He's the guy that goes to these campuses. You can talk to coaches, not players. But most coaches will say, he's a wonderful young man, blah, 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 blah. But I think Big Don's the guy that goes and finds bartenders in these towns and RAs in
He
the
crawls up
dorms. And
the
yeah, finds people that don't
orifice.
have any reason to, give you the bright and shiny, that if there's a problem, he's going to find it.
He's
If
that
this is
guy, huh?
somebody that, that does things that they don't want to be associated with or just isn't a good person. Um, Dom will figure that out, I think, for them. And I think they depend very heavily on his analysis and if he says, this guy was involved in some sort of incident, but it's not a big deal and it's not who he is, I think they
Listen
trust
to
that.
him.
That was probably the case with Jalen Mills, who dropped way down in the draft because of some kind of domestic incident that really
Up to the
wasn't.
seventh round, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, but it turned out not to be. He's never had anything like that in the NFL. It's something that happened at LSU, and whatever it wasn't really an indicator of his personality, I don't think. And, I don't think any team he's ever been on has had any kind of problem with Jalen Mills. And, that's the kind of stuff that they got Jalen Mills in the seventh round. He's a pretty good seventh round pick.
Huh.
I know they rely a lot on Dom and that stuff. The rest of it, I have no idea. I don't know, what he does. I don't want to speculate on what the rest of his duties, but guys can get in tight fixes off the field, and I think he probably
Picture?
yeah, does a bit of that sort of thing. And I
Okay.
think that's always the case with a security director,
Sure,
as was the
sure.
case with Butch Bacanico, who was his
That's
predecessor.
who it was, Butch. He used to yell at
Yeah.
me for bringing tea into the auditorium, and I'd always hide it. And he's like, "I don't want it spill," and then I'd spill it, and that's the reason the rule was there. And
Your fault.
he would see it from 30 rows away. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit!" He'd come running. I'm like, "God damn it! How does he see it every time?" Anyway, Butch
Yeah.
would always throw me out of the auditorium. But anyway, um, that's where's Butch? That's right. What happened to him? Is
He
he?
retired down to the shore. He's got to be pretty old by now. I don't really know. He's Butch has got to be pushing 80 or so
Oh
at
wow,
this point.
wow.
Yeah.
Uh,
He was Ed Rendell's security guy when Ed was
Oh,
mayor,
was
and
he?
he'd already retired from the police long before that. So.
so
But
Makai
Butch, if you're
Becton,
watching this, let us know how you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah, right. What's that,
that's
bro?
funny. So Makai Becton's still out there, right?
Yes, that's an
So
encouraging thing, I think,
That's
Sean. I
encouraging.
think,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it isn't, but you'd have to think if somebody had money that they were going to give Mekhi Becton, they'd be doing it.
yeah, exactly.
Are you on board with him? Like he didn't want to move his position at the Jets. He came here. He became like Mr.
Right.
Guy in the locker room,
Yeah,
crying.
I thought he did great. He had a
Great.
few problems in pass protection. because he had never played guard in his life before this year. But I think that's all pretty easily worked out. I don't think it was anything that it was like he didn't, it wasn't like he wanted to do the wrong thing. He just did a lot of twists and stunts and things like that he had never seen before playing tackle. Um, I think, but in the run game, he was a monster. He was
Monster.
just incredible. And I don't know what he wants in a contract. Sometimes guys want ridiculous money. Cooper Kupp is out there having been released by the Rams, being
Amazing. He
over
was a Super
30
Bowl
and thinking
MVP.
somebody's going to pay him 13 million a year. They're not. Uh, you know, uh,
Rumor is the Cowboys are out there now.
yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are going to give Cooper Kupp 13 million. I don't
I
see
don't
what
think
he
so
does
either,
for
but
them at that
yeah,
level. Yeah. They have
same.
cap problems.
Oh,
No team
absolutely.
with a cap crunch is going Cooper Kupp is limiting himself. If that's really what he wants, then he's going to be on a bad team that has a lot of cap money. I mean, if that's what you
Absolutely.
want, if you need that 13 million again for some reason, sure. But if you want to go somewhere and win something again, you're going to have to come in a lot cheaper than that. But I don't know about Becton. I think he probably thought there would be a pretty good payday coming out of this for him. I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been. The guy's a monster. I mean, I went to New Orleans for Super Bowl week, and I wasn't there for the game, but I actually got to see the guy up close for the first time. Holy moly. That is a gigantic man. Even Justin Mailata isn't quite like as square a human being as Mekhi
Becton.
Becton is. Uh, it
That's
was,
another. If they do sign him, I mean, they still have Steen and like. So what would Green? I mean, it's
yeah,
depth, but I mean, bringing Kenyon Green. I'm still stuck on the CJ thing. It,
yeah.
it just bothers me because he was a playmaker.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised. Like I said, I don't really want to speculate. I think it's unfair to, come
Speaking
up.
of, we
There are all
so
kinds of things that could have been,
sure.
you
No, I
know,
understand. They missed out on
but
that. They
I
missed
don't
out on
know.
the safety from New Orleans by
Yeah.
a scooch.
Well,
But
he really got paid.
he
I don't
did.
think he really. If we're talking about Justin Reed. Yeah,
Yes.
they were in, but nowhere near that level of money for him. They want to pile up comp picks. And I don't,
They have a
I
lot of
think
picks
this
in the
is a
next draft.
reasonably smart strategy, but we won't know until they make the picks and the picks play. I mean, you can have a whole bunch of picks and still
And still
screw
be
it up.
bust. Like
But
before 4 years ago,
right,
he didn't
yes,
draft very well at how he didn't.
yeah,
So the last 4 years, I think in the first 3 or 4 rounds, all but one has made an impact. So
yeah,
good for you. But and I hear these pundits on there, well, they're just going to repeat what they've been doing. Yeah, you know how rare it is to draft two rookie corners, two rookie anybods, and have them have such an
Yeah.
impact. That doesn't happen all the time.
yeah. And
No.
I'm a little worried about that. I kidded Howie when I was down in New Orleans. I kidded him about becoming beloved. I said, because Howie's self-image is that everybody hates him, and that,
Well, they're
that
back to hating him. I saw on Twitter they want to lynch him now. A month
I
ago,
don't think there's
a
very
month
many
ago there
people. I think that's a pretty small group there, Joe. I
it
think he's
is. No,
people up.
it
He's
is.
doing autograph signings and things like this.
I heard he
You
was an
know,
Oak the other day. He had a
yeah,
table,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but what you're talking about, Joe, people expecting ridiculous, nobody kills the draft every year, year after year after year after year.
Not at
Nobody's ever
all.
done that in the
Never
history of
done
the
that.
NFL. The Patriots never did it. It just doesn't happen, especially when you're not drafting high. A lot of those great draft picks that worked out for them, they just happened because of his machinations. I give him credit, but they had top 10, top 15 picks to get these people. They don't have that.
No,
Just to say they're going to pull something like that out of their uh, rear end,
that's rare.
again, no, they probably won't. But they have a great team, and they really just need some complementary pieces for next year. Down the road, they're going to need to perform more miracles. But right now, this year, this offseason, they don't need to perform miracles. They just need to kind of they did the most important thing, which was signing Zach Bond.
Mhm.
And,
Is he the
and
most important of the four guys that could have left, you think?
Absolutely.
Right.
There's no doubt, Joe, just not just because of the fact that he played so well at a position where they haven't really had anybody good in a long time, but because Nakobe Dean suffered that bad knee injury toward the end of the season. Nakobe Dean, I'll tell you right now, is not going to be really ready for the start of the season. You'll hear in training camp that he's ahead of schedule and blah, 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 blah. If he's playing and playing well by late season next year, I'll be a little bit surprised. You know, so you're looking at if you lose Zach Bond, what do you have?
Sure.
You couldn't do that. You just couldn't. There's no scenario in which you could do that. But anyway, we were talking about the comp picks. The thing about comp picks is if you go out and sign expensive free agents, then you negate the comp picks. So they don't want to do that. So they're signing cheap free agents to 1 year deals, which is something that has worked for them before. It also sometimes has not worked for them, but sometimes it does work. And they're not going to sign anybody that's going to, they want to get a bunch of comp picks for next year and load up in the 2026 draft. And that's their strategy, and we'll see if it works.
It's interesting. I mean, I saw come across Joshua Uche. Is that how you say
Uche,
his
yeah,
last name?
yeah.
Uche. So how he did it again? It's a 1 year term, but what is it? Got 4 dummy years, so it keeps
Yeah,
the.
so drives the cap number way down. And if he plays great, they can re-sign him if they want to.
Guys, he didn't suit up for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Like,
Nope.
that's what so like, how good can he be? He
Well,
didn't dress.
their pass until the Super Bowl anyway, they were considered a really good defensive line. So it's not like he didn't suit up for the Browns or something like that. But he had what, 11 and a half sacks a couple years ago?
Yeah,
I
three
don't
years
know.
ago he did.
I mean, who knows? They're looking at him. Apparently, from what I read, I don't know anymore. I'm basically retired, but from what I read, this guy, he's good on a limited pitch count. He's a guy you can send in for some snaps and he'll get you results, but you don't want him out there for 50 snaps a game. Well, the Eagles don't really do it that way. They edge rushers, they run them in and out,
Yeah.
and they can find some snaps for this guy. He doesn't. I don't think they're bringing him in to start or anything.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So Les, the big rumor also out there that Dallas Goddard could possibly be the next on the
Yeah.
move. Um, I mean, again, it sounds like, well, what they did they? No, I'm sorry, they signed a long snapper today. That's right. So
Yeah.
and another one, Lovato looks like he's going to be on the
Right.
move too. So
Well, on those two topics, on Dallas Goddard, it's a shame. I hope they don't do it because the compensation doesn't look like it's going to be anything wonderful. And
sure,
there really isn't a salary cap benefit this year to trading Dallas Goddard. Apparently, you would save money like starting in 2026. I mean, Howie knows what he's doing, but to me personally, is this exciting? No. Uh, I, figure out your 2026 cap in 2026. Um, and you don't have a tight end, really. I mean, they signed some guy that's, yeah, and they still have Calcaterra, but the Eagles have, the whole time I've covered them, they've had a top echelon tight end,
Sure.
starting
yeah,
with Chad Lewis, going on to Brent Selleck, and then to Zach Ertz, and then to
hmm
Goddard, And if they get rid of Goddard, they don't have that guy. So you're looking at the draft to draft a starting rookie tight end. Good teams don't go to the
no,
draft to draft starters, for right away. I don't like that. I hope they don't do it. I understand Dallas is probably a little bit overpaid given that he gets hurt a lot,
yeah, he's beat
Um,
up. I
yeah,
mean, he's a
and
hell of
maybe they're
a player.
thinking, I don't know what their doctors say. Maybe their doctors are saying this guy's one more shoulder separation away from, you know, uh, being on the
Yeah,
IR all year or something. I don't know, but I hope nothing happens with Dallas Goddard. The other thing, the long snapper, this is very interesting. And I don't often say that about long snapping. Uh, but yeah, Jake Elliott is coming off his worst year. he and Lovato came to the Eagles together pretty much in 2017. And uh, I don't want to speculate too much there either, but the fact that they're making this move after Jake Elliott's worst season makes you wonder. I mean, you didn't see a whole lot of snaps, that were like way over here or way over there, but maybe they weren't that happy. I know when David Akers, you remember, Joe, when David Akers was the Eagles kicker, he could talk your ear off about the operation and how it's not just David Akers running up and kicking the ball, it's the snapper, it's the holder, it's the timing, you know. Uh, I kind of think there must have been some
Really
dissatisfaction there.
interesting.
So they're going to have this guy from Cleveland or wherever the hell he's from, and I guess they gave him some money. So I guess they're pretty confident he's their guy.
Doesn't do magic tricks like the other guy did.
Like Doran yeah, I don't
Doran
know.
Boss.
Lovato was Doran replacement, and that's
Yes.
exactly what they did in 2017. They brought in
Oh,
Lovato to compete with Doran Boss. And it was one of those competitions that the Eagles sometimes have where they already know who they want to win the
Right.
competition.
Sure. Sure. No, I know.
well, it looks like the Eagles just signed another tight end, Kyle Granson
Now, who is
from
he?
the Indian tight end from the Colts.
Okay.
Turn, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, well, see,
it
I'm glad you
was
mentioned that, Sean,
the overall.
unless you're saying, yeah, I can see what they're doing. They're piling picks, which is good to have that kind of capital. You can move things around. You can throw them
Yeah.
into trades, but that to me tells me, and I think a good GM obviously looks down the road, but also keeps his eye on what you have here because there's still a window. And I mean, they were the
Right. Yeah.
layers and layers of talent this team had and they blew the doors
Right.
off the Chiefs. So we're looking in the future. Do they have the guys to step up and to be I mean, a lot of the guys that left on defense were like number twos, kind of like the role
Right.
players that played very well and helped. They all
Yeah.
contributed. Do they have that in the mix?
I kind of think they do. I think a Jomo will be Milt Williams, and I think he'll be very good at that. They need somebody to be a Jomo now because the Jomo also played, you know.
Right.
So that's important. But I think they're okay there. Safety, I'm not quite as sure. Sidney Brown was a pre-Vic Fangio draftee, and even after Sidney was healthy last year, Vic Fangio didn't get him on the field.
Right.
So I know the fans love Sidney Brown because he's a big hitter, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Any
At
chance
corner,
Bryce Huff can contribute next year?
I don't know. I think they're trying to get rid of him too. I don't
Yeah,
really.
it's out there that they've been trying to get rid
Yeah,
of him.
Someone's going to take that contract, huh?
yeah. I just don't think whatever he was not somehow when they signed him, they didn't check with Fangio, is my theory, because he just can't play that. I don't think it's that he can't play, period.
Football can't play in Fangio's
He
system.
can't play that system. He's not set up for that edge role. They just need to get him somewhere where he can play and cut their losses. But I think at corner, I think Keely Ringo has a lot of promise. He's a guy that takes penalties. They got to get him out of that. Um, and when they've, the veteran Adoree Jackson we started talking about, he's a reasonable guy, So, I don't think they've killed themselves at any position in terms of being good next year. I think they won't be as deep, but I mean, this was the most talented, this team that won Super Bowl 59 was the most talented Eagles team in the history of the franchise
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
one of the most talented teams the NFL has seen.
Hmm.
Are you going to be able to do that again? Probably not.
Right.
No.
It's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
It is a lot to ask, but offensively, they seem obviously they got their boys, they got their horses,
Yes.
under contracts. What'd you think about the Saquon extension?
I was surprised, but if anybody deserved more money,
I was going to
it would be
say
him.
there's a different category because they don't do that. They don't tear up a
Yeah.
contract after year one. wonder what T.O. has to say about that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's exactly what they didn't do for T.O. in
right,
2005. But, you know, Howie learned from Joe Banner, but he's not Joe Banner.
right.
I got a funny story about Joe Banner from this past week.
All right.
Go ahead.
So I was listening to Mike Missinelli, and Bill Colarulo was talking about Joe Banner, and Mike kept on egging him on and saying like, "Oh, you got to beef with him. You got to beef with him." So of course, I decided, oh, it'll be fun to go on Twitter and crack a joke about the Hoagie Gate. And that's why Bill, he tried to sneak one in when he was working for the Eagles. And I got a reply from Joe Banner, and it was, "This is untrue."
Yeah, yeah. Joe's Joe doesn't like me a bit, and I don't really know why. I felt like I treated him pretty fairly when I was a reporter, but he has no use for me whatsoever. Um,
Why do you think that?
I I just know he's said some things about me, and when I was at the Daily News, my editors often heard from Joe Banner. Um, Smart guy.
Yeah,
Hasn't worked in football in quite a few years, but
Mhm.
quite a few years.
uh, has a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
Why do
Seems
you
like
think
he's
he?
ruffled a lot of feathers.
The next agent who negotiates a really good contract in Joe Banner's eyes will be the first. The agents never, this is really interesting from a guy who was a general manager, and a president for so long. Uh, they always could have gotten more money. They should have gotten more money.
Why do you think he hasn't found work?
Well, he's not a young man anymore. And Joe's
Is
up
he
in,
looking for work?
I think when he first left the Browns, he certainly was.
Gotcha.
I don't
He was
know
on
anymore.
ESPN for a little bit, wasn't he?
What's
Yeah, he
that?
was doing a little bit of,
ESPN?
being an analyst, but I mean,
Yeah, for like a
Yeah,
hot minute. He was like a cap analyst or something.
right, right.
yes.
He has done some consulting for teams, helping them in hiring processes and things like that. And I'm sure he does a good job in those things. But he's a very opinionated man.
Yeah. Yeah, he likes to tweet a lot.
The thing that I think was a hand when he was with the Eagles, and we started this out talking about the Terrell Owens situation, and I was on the Eagles side in that, by the way, even though
Same.
Joe would never give me credit for it.
I was on
Um,
the other side, but God,
it I always felt like in contract negotiations, Joe had to win.
right.
And when you're talking about integral parts of your team, the way to look at it is this is somebody you want to feel good about
Right.
being there, to feel part of your operation.
Mhm.
It's not so much about you being able to dance around saying you got them to sign something that wasn't that great. I mean, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but that was the way I viewed a lot of his negotiations is he was going to be the winner,
Yeah.
and he was
Well,
going to
if you
show
were,
them who was boss. And I don't think that's the way you run things in pro sports. I don't think it works.
yeah. Well, he used to do the what was it? The proactive contract. Hey, let's do this up front.
Yeah,
Remember?
they actually passed a rule against it. He would go to second year players,
Yeah.
hadn't been drafted quite at the top, and had good first years and say, oh, gosh, you're only going to make such and such this year. Well, if you want to sign this 5-year deal, here's a couple $1 million, we can give you right now. You can buy a house for your mom and all that stuff that you wanted to do, and you didn't quite get enough money as a rookie, but here it is, right here, signed. And people would do that, and 3 years later, they'd be like, "Wait a minute, I'm the 48th highest paid safety or edge rusher in the league, and I've been in the Pro Bowl twice. Why? What the hell?"
There was always a player that gave you guys something to talk about on Daily News Live.
Yeah.
Always. It was Brian Westbrook the one year. Gosh,
And there were guys that would swear that they would never do that, and then they would go out and do it.
yeah.
You know, Sheldon Brown. I actually had a conversation with him. Somebody else signed one of those Joe Banner specials, and Sheldon was like, "Oh, I'm not ever going to do that," you know. And the next year, there it was.
Oh,
You know, but they have a, you know, in fairness to the players, the teams have a lot of cards. Your careers aren't very long, and you can bank on yourself and gamble on yourself, but if you get hurt, you lose the gamble, you
yeah.
know, and you end up with nothing. So, you know, there's an enticement, but you can't sign a guy, a second year guy to a long-term deal anymore. He has to play a certain number of years before you can redo his contract. And
Because of our good old pal Joe.
yes, absolutely.
That's
Les, real quick, this really doesn't have to do anything with anything, but I was watching Speak for Yourself today. Emmanuel Acho, former Eagle, Shady McCoy.
Hmm.
They were all talking about the DeMarcus Lawrence thing came up where he did an interview recently and said, well, there's certainly he
Right,
signed with the Seahawks. They're not going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. And Micah Parsons he wasn't talking to Micah Parsons. He just said they're not going to win one
right.
in Dallas. And he got, all huffy. And anyway, they talked about not liking certain other individuals on the team, but you still got to on the field do the right thing and do the right play. And Shady said one time I missed a block because I didn't like the guy, whatever. And our quarterback almost got killed. He said never did it again. And there's a couple of stories like that. And I forget who it was. One of the receivers talking about. He's no, it was Acho. He was talking about one of the defensive linemen. He said he just was a terrible person. He said he's matured a little bit since. Shady said I liked him, of course, but do you know any idea who that was on one of those teams, the
Oh, I
defensive
don't want to
line?
speculate on. I don't know.
He said a
I honestly
terrible
don't know,
person, just a bad
but I
person.
wouldn't want to say a name.
No,
And
okay.
I mean, it wouldn't if
I
it's
can't even.
not
I
that
can't even.
guy. They've had some guys that I could see fitting that. That would
Really,
have been a long time ago, though, wouldn't it?
long
When was
time ago.
Acho last with the Eagles?
Right, right. I was like, I couldn't think of. Of course, Shady liked him, so I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's
he
Well,
was a
Shady had a
lineman.
tangled history off the field.
sure he did.
He's a funny guy, and I like him, but he's had some misadventures over the
His
years.
mom nicknamed him Shady. What do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
what do you, what
yeah.
do you expect?
But that is interesting about the dynamic of teams and how, you know, we kind of have this, we grow up with this, you know, kind of win one for the Gipper attitude about sports that
Mhm.
everybody's like, you know, all
One
about the team
heartbeat, one
and so
heartbeat,
on.
right?
It's so ridiculous. You know, you get 60 some people in a room together and you have all kinds of jealousies and people who are just crazy
Yeah.
and people who just don't get along, people who the thing, you remember Carson Wentz and all that drama. I I never really realized the extent to which he didn't connect with teammates, but I did wonder, even when things were going well, about the fact that to be his buddy, you had to be in the Bible study, you know, that he kind of didn't reach out to people who weren't part of that little group.
Hmm.
And a franchise quarterback can't be like that. You
Absolutely
know,
not.
that's no, that's, you know, and it's just that's kind of part of the whole fabric of pro sports is a leader has to be able to lead and speak to and relate to so many different kinds of people from different backgrounds who have different agendas and are different points in their lives. You know, a 34-year-old guy with three kids is way different than a 21-year-old rookie, you know, in what he's
Absolutely.
interested in what he
Yeah.
does with his life, you know.
Yeah. Free
Uh,
time.
yeah, and it's very intricate. But the Cowboys thing, I kind of feel like Parsons feels like he has to be the spokesman for the Cowboys.
Apparently, right?
And it's too bad because everybody knows DeMarcus Lawrence is right. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, they haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. They're not close to winning a Super Bowl now. Jerry Jones is 82 years old. You can tell by the way he approaches contract negotiations that he doesn't really understand the way the league is run in 2025. You know, it's a tough situation. It really is. But if I were the leader of the Cowboys, as Micah Parsons kind of is, defensively anyway, I would say, DeMarcus, did you really have to do that? You know,
Right.
I don't know that I'd get into a big Twitter fight with him, but you don't need that if
You know,
you're looking at it from a Dallas perspective. You don't
sure.
need somebody saying that about your team, and especially someone who was there 11 years, to hit that on the way out the door
Right.
is very tough for the people that are still
You're
there.
still there and gonna be there for a
Yeah.
while. That's
I
a
would think about my friends a little. I guess if I were DeMarcus Lawrence, I'd be thinking about my friends. And unless
sure.
I thought in saying that I could somehow effect a positive change, which I don't see how that would happen,
It doesn't.
I just would keep my mouth shut.
Doesn't do anything. That comment
Yeah,
doesn't do anything. It's not
right.
going to land home in a positive way.
No.
And the fact is, he's going to Seattle.
And he's not going to win. They just got
Win
rid of their
anything there.
quarterback.
Got
I
Sam
mean, they're not,
Darnold, who hasn't won
yeah,
anything, and
Yep.
no.
What it does do is it continues us talking about the NFL and no other sport.
And somebody said Jerry's got to be happy because that's all he really wants is for the Cowboys to dominate discussion, which is the root of the problem.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, that's his focus. There was a story back in the regular season. I don't know if you saw it about how the players hate that they have these guided tours of the practice facility
Sure.
because there are people like standing outside the glass watching them lift weights and stuff. And the players think this is just incredibly intrusive and hard to focus. But this is what Jerry wants, boy.
yeah.
It's a circus. He's going to bring,
It's like a zoo. You watch
people
the
in,
animals.
charge them $50 a head or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's get through here. Let's
We had
yeehaw. Yeah.
we had Marcus on a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how being an NFL owner is just, a dream and wild, and just Jerry just takes it to another level. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's more about Jerry, the focus of Jerry.
Oh yeah. Well, that's
Jerry's
why
world.
they never have a really like a hot coach. You never see like the best young coach in the
Right.
league.
The last
Oh,
one
absolutely.
he had a problem with, and he won a couple Super Bowls and put him in a position to win a third.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
didn't want
But
the attention he was getting.
right. And it was
you don't hear from Jeffrey Lurie during the regular season.
Right. Ever. Ever.
Things are going well, things are going badly. Jeffrey Lurie's around. You can wave to him in the hallway, but he is not going to say a word about the game, about what should have happened on third down. Jerry holds a press conference
After
after
every
every game,
game. Every game.
yeah.
and they type it up for the media. Like here's what Jerry had to say. Well, I don't know if we should have thrown that pass over the middle. Nobody wants to coach in that
Right,
atmosphere.
of course.
Les, you make it now you're making me want to watch Pony XS with the description of how it is down in Cowboy Land.
Oh, it's crazy. It's just crazy. But it's good for the rest of the league and because Dallas could dominate the NFL. If Dallas had smart ownership,
Yeah.
the facilities they have, the national following they have, the profile that team has, everybody should want to play there. But they don't.
No, no,
Not anymore.
no.
Not who wants to look over your shoulder all the time and see Jerry behind you, especially if you're the coach.
Yeah.
And who wants to know that you're playing for an organization that isn't really focused on winning the Super
That's
Bowl?
what they're not.
And you think of that team, those teams that won it, there were literally a bunch of Jerrys on that team. That's, I mean, don't get me wrong, they were awesome. I mean, they were so good.
Back in the 90s, yeah.
Oh yeah, but the personality of that team, they were all.
Well, they were crazy, and that wouldn't go in today's social media world.
Oh
The
no,
whole thing with that house that they had, where they
White
would,
House, the White House.
yeah, that would be they'd all be thrown out of the league in
oh
2025.
for sure,
But
absolutely.
it was an incredible array of talent, and the league was so different that you could keep a team together.
Right.
That's the thing about dynasties that people don't understand is the Steelers of the 70s, there was no free agency.
Right.
Of
Right.
course, they had a great team. Once they got those guys,
Kept
until they
them.
got old, they were all Steelers. You weren't going
Absolutely.
to trade Terry Bradshaw or let him leave in free agency, or Mean Joe Green wasn't going to become a Falcon or anything. I mean, it was, and that's why what New England did was incredible. But a lot of that was Tom Brady
That
being
was
unique.
Tom Brady.
And the defense, some years the defense was really, really
Yeah, no,
good.
I mean Belichick's tremendous. He won 2 Super Bowls
Yeah,
before, he became a head coach, so
right.
he's
But, in this era, you saw Kansas City. Somebody was saying to me yesterday that Kansas City kind of looked tired and not that I don't know, energetic in the Super Bowl. And if you've won two in a row, just the hurdles you have to go through to get to the
tons.
third one.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. I mean, you saw them scrape and claw through the regular season, barely beating bad teams.
Yep.
Uh, and we kind of talked ourselves into they've gotten this all straightened out, and Mahomes is so good that it's not going to matter, but it does matter.
Doesn't
Sure.
If you can't protect Mahomes, he's not going to beat you.
right. Right.
He's not going to beat the other team. He's one guy.
One guy, and you make him run for his life and make him feel
Right.
uncomfortable. Look at
And
the
you don't give him great weapons,
don't give him great
really.
weapons. That's how they lost against Tampa. He ran
Yeah.
for his life in that game. Anytime Brady didn't win a Super Bowl, I mean, against the Giants, pressure up the middle. It made him look uncomfortable.
Yes.
Made him look
Yes.
bad. Nobody's going to be able to stand there when you got guys, pounding you all game and just in your face and moving you
That's
around
right.
the pocket. So, yeah, Bert did a real nice job, again, playing their best 2 games at the end of the year. And guys got
Yeah.
paid, and it's a different looking defense, but I still think they'll be all right.
It'll be good. It'll be good. They'll be, they'll have a tougher schedule. And probably one thing that tends to happen is the injury luck tends to be, if it's pretty decent one year, it turns to the next year, suddenly everybody's hurt. But,
Absolutely.
we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't bet against them.
I wouldn't either.
Same.
I think they're still loaded. I mean, they still have Jalen Hurts, the only quarterback other than Mahomes who's won a Super Bowl is getting paid 50, of the 50 million club, the dollar club, he's the only one.
Yeah,
Burrow's been to one, and Jalen's been to two, and he's won one.
that's right. And the Eagles have never had that before.
Right.
They've never had a young quarterback with a Super Bowl MVP. They had Foles, but everybody knew he wasn't really the quarterback.
Right.
Yeah. We just passed the anniversary of the Eagles signing him that year in 2017.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was happy to see that because what a great guy he is. Yeah, really nice person, interesting family.
Great athlete. Listen, he played basketball. He won
Yeah,
pickleball tournaments recently. Like he's a pickleball champion. Like he's a good
He had
athlete.
a fantastic commercial with Tom Brady during the Super Bowl.
He's got some good commercials with Brady now.
Yeah.
And it's good. Brady can laugh at himself for some of that shit. I mean, he's got,
right.
enough rings, and Brady's doing fine.
Yes, I think so.
Although, bringing Geno Smith in, their owner's a better quarterback than Geno Smith. Why doesn't he come out of the booth and sling it a little bit? But Pete, we'll see. The Raiders are the Raiders.
Yeah, it's been a long time since the Raiders were relevant,
Right?
It's
When
a
John
shame.
Ritchie was playing there in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Because that used to, when you and I were young, I shouldn't say you're a lot younger than I am, but
Not
when
much.
you were young and I was middle-aged, let's put it that way. The Raider brand was, that meant something in the NFL. That was
I think the Tuck rule is the closest they got. I don't think they've ever been the same since the Tuck rule game.
right. Well, they got to the Super Bowl
Oh, that's right. Oh,
the year that the Tampa beat the Eagles in the
Yeah.
NFC 2002 season, 2003 Super
that was
Bowl.
after the Tuck rule. That's
Yeah,
right.
and they were on fumes then though. It was Rich Gannon and
When Barrett
Jerry
Robbins,
Rice, 150-year-old
the night
Jerry
before.
Rice.
Yeah, their center went AWOL the night before the game.
Yeah, that's always a bad thing.
Joe Vicious is still running. He's still
Still see
running.
Joe Juravicius down in sideline. Keenan McCardell, that touchdown before the half.
Yeah. Should never have happened, but it did. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Buddy, always great talking to you, man. This is always cleaning lady's got the vacuum on, so we got to roll.
Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Good seeing you again. Let's
Good talking to you, Joe and
always
Sean.
good
Yeah.
talking to you. Les Bowen, award-winning writer for the Inquirer and Daily News, joins us again on the Philly Pulse. Sean Lochner and Joe Staszak. We'll talk to you next week, folks. Unless, I'm submitting a piece on kind of how the week went with the Eagles for Heavy.com. I'll put this in the piece and I'll shoot you the piece later so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
Appreciate it,
Cool.
bud.
Great.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, thanks, fellas. We'll see you
Have a good night.
next week. Thanks for watching.
Indeed. Have a good weekend.
You too,
You
guys.
too.
Talk to
All
you
right.
next time.
Take care.